Okay, welcome to session 3. So we were actually discussing a vulnerability, information security leak that happened because of a photocopy machine, and that was basically found out by Vice Jen, the heroine of the story. If you look at an infrastructure, IT infrastructure, when you want to build a secure IT infrastructure wherein you can do the forensics in case of an attack, and you can also protect it so that there are no attacks. Two parts, one to protect it so that there is no attack, and in case of an attack how effectively can I do a forensic. Both of this involves that I need to select the hardware properly, I need to select the software properly, I need to also select the vendor properly, right. I will give you a lot more examples of how each of these are very important, right. If you have a tricky vendor, we already saw one example. If the vendor is not a trustworthy vendor, you may lose, and that loss may be very significant. It can even lead to the complete closure of the company. Please note that. So I will continue with that story. Hopefully you are liking this. So I will continue with the story. After the debacle at TTT that we described in the last two sessions, my heroine Vice Jen, she joined the IT wing of a public sector company, and to her fortune, quote unquote, they wanted to buy a photocopy machine, and she was made member of the committee. She shared very confidentially her experience with the other committee members, because if she make it public, that JKL will sue her for a defamation case. She went and confidently told, hey, in that previous thing this happened, so let us be very happy. So this is also very important today, like when a fraud occurs and your forensic cannot establish that that fraud has occurred, but you know that this is the real reason, this reason cannot be publicly told out, right. So though this is a real reason, but if you do not have the proof that this is a real reason, right, this essentially, even if there is a small, there is no doubt that this is the reason, but then I can't prove that this is the reason. So that was some very interesting example that we saw in the past, in the last two sessions. The committee actually decided to place order with the vendor who is trustworthy. Now this is something that I covered in the first information security course, information security 1 3 years before, like what is trust. So when this file went to the audit, because the public sector there is an audit, the audit committee said, what do you mean by trustworthy vendor, define trust, right. So I hope many of you are computer scientists, even electrical, but just I will try and make it. If I want to define something mathematically, like I want to define x mathematically, so there is a relation between, there should be this x should satisfy certain properties. So there is something called, a relation is called an equivalence relation if that relation is reflexive, if the relation is symmetric, if the relation is transitive. If a relation is equivalence relation, then I can actually go and make a good definition of that relation. Trust is also a relation. Trust is a relation between x and y. I trust that system, meaning there is a relation between x and I, myself, and that system. Now trust is not reflexive. Sometimes I do not trust myself, many times I do not trust myself. Trust is not symmetric. I trust A, trust B, B need not trust A. Trust is not transitive. A trust B, B trust C, A need not trust C. Trust is context independent. I trust you for something, I do not trust you for something else. And trust is not invariant with time. Morning I will trust you, evening I will not trust you, tomorrow morning I may again start trusting you. So all the 5 properties which actually makes definition of any relation easy, namely reflexive, symmetric, transitive, context independence, and invariance with time, all these 5 are missing in the case of trust. So coming out with a mathematical definition of trust is going to be extremely complex. They could not come with a convincing definition of trust. So they went, so audit said nothing doing, you have to give me a definition of trust. These guys broke their head, no. So they cannot push the purchase saying I want a trustworthy vendor. So the next thing that normally happens, we have to buy that vendor. So then we start giving them specifications such that that trustworthy vendor alone can meet that specification, and this is tech spec. So I need a photocopy machine, duplex, 60 pages a minute, weighing some 67.28435 kgs and dimension 19.22 cross 20.45 cross 72. The vendor should have a branch office which is 4.6324 kilometers from the premises of installation. This entire tender was put in such a way that the person I trust basically quotes for me, otherwise the company will be completely in danger. The public sector company will be completely in danger. Now the vendor who is quoting for this XYZ, whatever that vendor, knew that this spec will only meet him. So instead of quoting say 1.2 lakhs, he went and quoted 7.2 lakhs, 6 times the cost, because he knows nobody else can quote, and this becomes the cost of trust today, right. So this is very important. So all processes are followed. I need to buy, I can't buy some Tom, Dick and Harry and invest this depending upon the previous experience, which Weisgen actually told that committee. The committee cannot risk buying it from somebody else, we don't know. They may have any camera inside which can be activated through an internet or a Bluetooth or something, and they can carry. So if I cannot photocopy a particular confidential document inside an organization safely, securely, I don't think anybody can run the organization. So the committee was correct in basically telling that somehow we have to get it from this XYZ who they believe that it is trustworthy. He need not be trustworthy, but this is where. And the moment you start tailor making some of these things to suit that purchase, then the cost, this is the cost of monopoly here. If I know that I alone will win a tender, then whatever price I quote becomes the benchmark. So actually Weisgen felt very bad, and she actually quit this organization. So then she went to a next company, this is a carrot part, which is some RRR, and then again there the complete IT operations are outsourced. Some days later there was a major breakdown of the IT services, it all stopped. Then she went ahead and then looked at what are all the different components. So there was a network team, there was a hardware involved, there was a software involved, there was a database involved. At least 4 different teams were working together running the show. When she started analyzing what went wrong in this whole thing, she found out that the network team blamed the hardware team, which in turn blamed the software team, which in turn blamed the database team, which in turn blamed back the network team. So these guys were going on a merry-go-round, right? Merry for them, pain for others, for the company, because things were not coming up, right? This is typically the scenario, right? So I say, sir, there is nothing wrong, he has given it wrong. So I go him, he says he has given wrong, and then people are just showing hands, and this was just, and the entire IT infrastructure came to a standstill. So the management decided, okay, please note, the management decided that this cannot happen, each one will be blaming each other and I will be suffering after paying all the AMC and other things. This is stupid. Let us put one fellow and he will be responsible for all the things. He will be responsible for the network, he will be responsible for the hardware, he will be responsible for the database, he will also be responsible for the software. And if there is a failure, there is one fellow whom I can catch and ask him, hey, bring it up. Please note, as a process, this is the best decision, and it is an obvious decision that any management will take if they are put into a scenario like what we saw. Now the company VVV, which got this entire contract, maintain everything for us, extremely happy, it actually got the jackpot. So VVV was selected to handle all IT operations, the hardware, the networking, the software, under and all these under the single supervision and control of VVV. When it comes to that, when I have a single fellow handling all these things, even if the parent company wants some data, it has to go and ask that VVV and they will give the data. So that is the sort of complete monopoly that happened. So whatever happens in the database, in the network, in the hardware, in the software, everything VVV has a control over it. If he does not have a control, he can't maintain it. Now let us see what happens. This company RRR again started having bad luck. It started again losing tenders, and it started slowly moving towards bankruptcy, not as fast as the first company where Weisgen worked, the TTT company that you saw in the session 1. Slowly this started moving towards bankruptcy. Weisgen, based on her previous experience, again I repeat, she is a wise heroine. So she immediately went and checked the photocopy machine. Is there a camera inside? Then she started looking closely what happened in the last 1 year. It should be something related to IT. That I am again started losing tender. It is very similar to what happened in my first company, the TTT. Right? Let us go and find out what happened here. So she started closely. The only major change that was happened was in the AMC. Instead of 4 fellows handling the whole show, 1 fellow is handling the whole show. He was handling networking, he was handling database, he was handling hardware, he was handling software. So she started looking closely at VVV and she started also praying God. And luck came. Please note that many things come by sheer luck. And here luck played a role. She immediately remembered that there was a presentation by that vendor VVV who was maintaining the AMC about a high availability disk that was purchased. High availability disk means it will never fail. It gives you 24/7/365 days. It will be available always. The failure would be 0.00000 how many zeros? 1%. So that is what we mean by high availability disk, because finally when you run many of these IT infrastructure, the data that is generated and stored is extremely important. So if the disk fails, everything fails, right. So disk becomes the most important entity in this whole story. What was this high availability disk? So you buy the disk from a vendor. Now you are sitting in your office. Suddenly one FedEx will come. FedEx is one courier will come. Then you remove that courier, then you see a disk inside. Then you carry that disk to the data center. You open the rack. There will be one disk having a red color. You need not shut down or do anything. You just pull that disk out and push this disk, new disk that has come, and the whole system will start running. So the failed disk is replaced with a new disk without disrupting the service, right. So this disk is actually called as, these type of disks are called RAID, right. RAID means redundant array of independent disks. So instead of having a copy on one disk, we will have the copy spread across multiple disks. So even if one fails, I can remove that one and put a new one and rebuild it very quickly on the fly without shutting down the system, and I will not lose any data. I also suggest people who are listening who do not know what is RAID, R-A-I-D, RAID, redundant array of independent disks, to go and look at this technology and find out what has happened there. These are also called as hot swappable disk, right. Hot swappable means when the system is running, I can pull out the disk from it and push the new disk and make the system run without stopping. These are all very important for IT infrastructure. If you look at some of the websites today, major trading websites or retail websites, if they even stop for some small duration, the loss is phenomenally high, runs to millions of dollars, that is what they say. So all these service providers will have these type of high availability disk, right. Now how this is possible? In my data center some disk went off FUT. I do not know what it is. Even before I know, the company who is manufacturing the disk knows it, and he sends me by courier a disk. After I receive the disk only, I come to know that the disk has failed. How this is possible? The simple answer to this question is that while installing the disk, they will register for a 24/7 support, and subsequently after the installation at regular intervals, say every 5 minutes or 10 minutes, this disk will send health of the disk, its own health information, like is there any failed sectors, how many errors came in the past, is there any voltage regulation issues, is there the spindles are working correctly, or if it is SSD, what is the number of times things have been erased. So something called the health of the disk is important, and it will be sending it at regular intervals, and when the disk fails, automatically this detail will be sent there, and there will be some software which is looking at this and hey, this disk has failed, so whose disk is this? This is the vendor, okay, to his address send another disk. So all this decision could actually be automated, and it happens automatically. Now Vicegen went and found out what is this health information, how much and what is going on in this health information. So the health information is generated by the disk, by the operating system, and this is basically sent over the network. If I want to send this information, the health information of the disk, I need to have control over the operating system, and I should also ensure that my network firewall does not stop its transmission, and it is possible only if I have control both on the operating system and also on the network. So she went and looked at what is inside, what is the health. They found out that it is encrypted, but it was running to MBs. The health of a disk may not be more than kilobytes, but it was running in megabytes. So something fishy was going, other than the health of the information, something else also started moving out in the pretext of health. And people are, when Vicegen asked what is going on, they said it cannot be decrypted, that encrypted key is somewhere else, etc., etc. So then after a lot more of fight, they found out what the key encryption is. Then they found that some crucial directories are also zipped and sent along with the health information. So this all happened. So the information started leaking through this part, and this all happened because the person who was handling the operating system and the person who was handling the networking are same. So when I do a fraud at the operating system level, I can allow that fraud to percolate to the external world by making sufficient adjustment to the networking. This could not have happened if A maintains the operating system and B maintains the networking, and in the interest of the company please keep them isolated, then there is no way by which this large data could have passed the firewall. So the decision of the company to give the AMC for all the major components like networking, database, hardware and operating system, all these things to a single vendor was the reason. It was obviously a correct logical reasoning, but still it, from a security point of view, it became a very bad decision. So if you look at a committee, Gopalakrishna committee constituted by RBI on the guidelines for how to build IT infrastructure in banks, there is very nice discussion on why different vendors should be in charge for different components. So it is a must. Though all that we have seen, there was a failure, people were pointing fingers, there was absolutely chaos, and that's the reason why they put it on to the same fellow. All these are logically coherent things, but from a security angle, this indeed has led to a major issue. So based on this great thing, what Vicegen found out, management appreciated Vicegen's presence of mind and made her the chief information officer. But because of this loss of tender, which she went and caught it very early because of her intellect, the company that quarter was actually making a loss, but people externally did not know that they are making a loss. Now every quarter, so this company had shares. So every quarter, if I am a publicly listed company, every quarter I have to announce the results. So before I announce the result and say I have a loss, if somebody else knows that I have a loss, because if the moment I announce that I have a loss, my share price will go down. So if this information is got a little bit earlier, that before I announce the result, somebody comes to know that I am going to report a loss, then if they have my shares, they can immediately sell it so that they don't incur a loss. That is why a publicly listed company, the directors of the publicly listed company are not allowed to trade in some window where the results are going to be announced. This is called insider trading, and that should not happen, right, within some duration. But what happened in this case again, from when Vicegen took over as CIO, she found that particular thing, because of the mismatch that happened, that particular company was going to report certain loss. 15 minutes before the actual results were announced on the web, around 3 million shares were sold by shareholders. This created lot of suspicion, and they asked Vicegen to investigate how this information has leaked. Obviously somebody will not sell off 3 million shares. So obviously somebody should have known that there is a loss, and how did this information leak? Now let us look at the only medium through which one can leak information is through the web, because when the results are being prepared, it has to be put on the web. Only the web admin will know because he is uploading the results, and the directors are inside. No mobile phones are allowed. The web admin is logged inside the office without mobile or telephone connection while he is uploading the results. So nobody will know about it. And so how did this information leak? Directors will not tell it out. The only fellow who knows is the web admin, and he doesn't have a mobile phone or telephone, and then, right. So he is just uploading the result. How will somebody know that? So this is the question. Now when I am uploading the result, some 10 minutes before only he will also come to know, because he is taking those things, typing it and then uploading. He wants to make an HTML file and upload, or he is to give a link. So just 10 minutes before or 15 minutes before the real results is going to say go live, at that point only this web admin also will know. So he will not know yesterday that he will make a web page for it and then he will populate. So he will only know the result 15 minutes, and he has no access to phone, he has no access to internet. Given this, how does the information leak? So again I stop here in this session 3, and we will go out to session 4 to find out how did the information actually leak. Right. I hope you are enjoying this, and we will see you in session number 4. Thank you.